Hello, America. Inflation and food prices and Google's connection to Egypt. It's actually, come over here. Do you remember this story? Remember when we told you this is September of 2009? And the government denied it at first, and then Yossi Sargent resigned just 23 days later. This story was about the Art Council putting out Obama propaganda. They were using artists to go out into their communities. And we showed you, and at first they denied it, and then we had the proof, and then he resigned, and it kind of just went away. That's happening again, but in a different way, and tonight we'll explain. After all the talk of the regular, average Jeffersonian Egyptian that just had enough of Mubarak, after all of the networks just cheered and clapped at the blossoming democracy, after the media led you to believe that this was just a spontaneous uprising, today, Egypt is waking up under military rule. So far, the military has dissolved the parliament and suspended the constitution. Plus, military and police officials are just clearing out the remaining protesters in Cairo's Tahrir Square and putting a ban on all strikes. Why would you do that? You don't think the unions are involved, do you? Well, hello, 1776. Tell me, media, how do you think the average Egyptian feels to be free today? I'm not saying getting rid of Mubarak was a bad thing, because it wasn't. He was a dictator with an abysmal human rights record. But this slogan, as we should have found out before, the slogan is, let me go down here, the slogan of Barack Obama, and now being used all over the world, doesn't really mean anything. It's undefined. Change. Change to what? Democracy. Democracy. What does that mean? Nothing. Nothing. It depends on who the people are that are voting. What does it mean? The people's will. Okay? That's great. But the founders rejected it. They rejected democracy. Why? Because it leads to mob rule. It leads to the person that can organize the biggest mob or the biggest voting bloc. That's who wins. Democracy leads to the oppression of the weak, of the minority. The one with the biggest mob wins. And the one with the biggest mob right now is the Muslim Brotherhood. Have your friends woken up yet to the fact that change didn't mean anything? You didn't know. Change can mean anything to anybody. It clearly, change meant something different to the radicals here in America than it did to, Ma and Pa were like, yeah, I'm just tired of the way things are. We got to clean things up. It meant something totally different. Are they waking up now to the fact that there is no stated transition plan in place in Egypt? And the most organized group is the Muslim Brotherhood that's now being whitewashed by our media. They are not friendly to Israel. They are not friendly to America. And they are certainly not friendly to man's freedom. Last week, I showed you a website. And the website in Arabic is Khalifa. But in English, that means caliphate. Which, it's strange. Aren't you hearing more about a caliphate now than ever before? Huh. That's strange. Khalifa.com, building a global movement for Khalifa, caliphate, meaning a whole global Islamic state. Well, this weekend, there was this story. Hizbut Tahrir to the Supreme Council of Egyptian Armed Forces, the second Camp David protector has fallen. This is kind of an interesting article posted on Khalifa.com. It says, quote, 30 years ago, Sadat fell dead by the faithful men of Egypt, a penalty for his sin of signing the treacherous Camp David Accords with the Jewish entity occupying Palestine. Today, the fugitive, Hosni Mubarak, has fallen. Sadat's his successor in the protection of the Camp David Accords, in the betrayal of Allah. America remains, even in these recent events, poking her nose into the affairs of Egypt, as is on the lips of Obama, his vice president, and his advisors. Do they not worry that his nose will be cut off or that his tongue will be cut out as Egypt returns free and honorable, the Kanata of Allah on earth? I don't know. I mean, I'd like to celebrate, but should we not think about the president's nose being cut off or his tongue will be cut off? I wish I could celebrate, but that doesn't sound like a good thing to me. Things are getting worse and worse and more unstable all throughout the Middle East, and you are now witnessing it. This message from Hizbut Tahrir is important, and you'll understand why in just a few minutes. But last week, I told you that part 2 is about to start. This is where we were 4 weeks ago. I put this up and said, radicals, Islamists, communists, and socialists will work together against Israel, against capitalism, and work together to overturn stability. I told you that those three things last week were done. And I added this, part 2. Protests will now become contagious. This last week, everybody again said, oh my gosh, listen to him. I said they will cascade, they will sweep the Middle East, and begin to destabilize Europe and the rest of the world. I'm going to check both of these off, which leaves us with only one more. How can you possibly say that? Oh, the crazy man at 5 o'clock. Have you watched the news at all? Because they're all covering it. Algeria, Jordan, Yemen, even in Italy, people are taking to the streets. I find it interesting that the White House also supported the people on the streets of Egypt. But where is Iran? Do we have Iran? On the streets of Iran, we have a different story. The people on Iran, here they are. This was live a couple of hours ago from Iran. You don't want to show a lot of faces of the people in Iran, because that's a death sentence for being out. But where is the president coming out and supporting those people? These are people who are risking their lives and being beaten down. But no one will question the president on why he's not out in front today encouraging them. Why? No, they're too busy praising the democracy in Egypt. They accepted the storyline that this was a sudden, miraculous uprising of youth who just spontaneously decided they had had enough. Anyone who presented a different theory, well, of course, they were clueless. But was it spontaneous? Was the world really caught off guard? Well, if you were reading a newspaper in England 2 Sundays ago, you would remember this story. But I wasn't in England 2 Sundays ago, so most of us didn't see this. It was a cable that was leaked by WikiLeaks. The Telegraph titled the article this: Egyptian protests, America's secret backing for rebel leaders behind the uprising. We brought this to your attention. This cable revealed the American embassy had been working with a young Egyptian dissident and helped him attend a U.S.-sponsored summit for activists in New York. You have this? While working to keep his identity secret from the Egyptian government, he was here, and the State Department knew it. The dissident had told the State Department of an alliance of opposition groups that had been drawn up and drew up a plan to overthrow President Hosni Mubarak in 2011. That's now. That leaked cable was from 2008. 3 years ago, this cable from the U.S. State Department talks about an alliance to overthrow our ally. That kind of takes the wind out of the spontaneous sails, doesn't it? But there's more. If you look closer, you'll find a much deeper involvement by the United States than just helping keep that one dissident's identity quiet.